right. Hello, hello. I gotta get all my buttons correct here because we have a guest, and so I did some mad dash setup of OBS before the call, and I probably messed something up. So I would appreciate it if everyone could uh very politely let me know what I screwed up. But hopefully you can see me and our guest, I guess over that where I can't point that way over there, um,
Either way,
uh,
yeah.
who will be helping us out today, and we'll do some intros in a few minutes after we get everything going. I like to give a few minutes for people who are joining in a little bit late. So we'll just do some chit chatting. Well, I guess we could do a quick intro. Uh, so this gentleman over here is a good friend of mine who I've known. Oh gosh, forever. It feels like 10 years now, at least 10 years. We met at a conference, and we ended up working together for a long time. And most recently, I was able to drag him into the LaunchBox world to help us out with some web stuff. So Stefan, or Skirmy Punk, as we'll use for tag names, welcome to the stream. And we'll spend a couple of hours. But if you just want to say hi, by all means. We'll make sure the audio works. So if everyone could let Stefan know if you can hear him, that would be great.
Hi, yeah. Um, I've been in the chat a little bit last few streams, but this is me.
This is me. Um, awesome. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Andrew. I have my. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen. That's weird. So I usually have my Obsidian open with my little notes, in which I opened preemptively for this call, which is fine. I should be able to, I think, type in your little window because we set up a thing. I'm gonna try it. We're
Yeah,
gonna
sure.
create
Create a
a
file.
new file, and all right, I think you should have a file. Could you click on that? We'll see how this works.
Yeah, we're
So
we're
the
trying out live share in Visual Studio Code. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, we're gonna try out all sorts of stuff today. So it may look like we're idiots, but believe me, uh, we are. We are, because we're trying out some new things live. But yeah, the screen you're looking at is Stefan's screen, as he is our uh, our lead web developer, and today we're doing some front end work, which I am an idiot at. I know how to type the stuff and I know how to do the things, but I don't feel very confident in my abilities there, which is why we have Stefan on the team helping out to kind of type all of the front end codey bits. And today we're going to be using his screen to type. And so we have his Visual Studio open using Microsoft Live Share that I hopefully will be. Oh my gosh, that's weird seeing myself type on that screen. All right, technology, it's cool. But today, so live, it's not going to render correctly, but we'll deal with it. Maybe it has a preview mode. Oh, it does. Nice. All right, how do you do bullets in Markdown? Does it support checkboxes? Oh, that's not right. It does not support checkboxes. Okay, we'll deal with it. All right, so we'll do our usual round of updates. We'll reintroduce Stefan here in a second, and then we'll talk about what we're going to be doing today. So welcome on this February 18th of 2025. Hope everyone had a great, relaxing weekend. I know our friendly Canadians had an extra day off for whatever their province decided was important for the day. Um, if you're not from Canada, you should go look up their what are these statutory holidays that all the provinces are required to do every single month because y'all lobby better for things like this than than the rest of us here in the States. We have to continue working on all the days. We don't actually get holidays. That's all fake and only on TV. But Stefan, as a Canadian, got the day off yesterday, so we're hopefully not rushing into today's stream uh, and getting this to work. But welcome. Hope everyone had a great weekend and a long weekend for the Canadians and a Valentine's Day in whatever way that you celebrate it with too many chocolates or too many too many friends, I guess. And
You're gonna say like not safe for work content.
yeah, I would never, I would never swear on a family show. I do hope Chunky Lover is here today. That screen name. Um, all right, I'm just gonna get into this before I make a mess of myself. All right, so updates. Uh, so today is Tuesday. Every Tuesday for the foreseeable future, we will be doing a development-focused live stream. It's at this time pretty consistently, so it's noon for me because I'm in the Midwest, and I think it's noon for Stefan as well because he's in the North Midwest. I don't know how you guys refer to it in Canada, but
The
he's
prairies or
also
central, yeah.
the prairies. So Laura Ingalls Wilder. But Tuesday at this time we do a development focused. Hey, Chunky's here. Perfect. Your name. I don't know who you are as a person, but you're fantastic because your name and your suggestions so far on the feedback forum and just your presence live rent free up in my head. So thank you for existing. I appreciate it. A development focused live stream Tuesdays where we'll do all the things. I know the last few streams have been focused on web stuff, but we have a lot of that to do. And the last few streams have been focused on building a single sign-on solution for the whole LaunchBox community. You know, right now there is so many different logins, but that's the login. But we will also in future streams do coding on LaunchBox itself for Windows, for Android, the new Linux build, other stuff that we're working on. It's intentional to give you a little bit of insight into the things that we're working on, but also to give you an opportunity to ask questions about the technology behind the pretties, all the things that you see. There's a lot of code and work and people that go into making that, and hopefully we get a chance to talk about that live, but also for you to ask questions. And then on Thursdays, our good friend Farron, he does another Canadian. I'm just surrounded by Canadians, I think, but he does another stream where he will spend some time working on themes. He'll go through the recent feedback on the feedback forum and spotlight a few things. He'll obviously talk shop and answer questions and do all the things. Not as much on the development pieces, but also very interesting to listen into. You'll get to see bits of our roadmap and status on things. So really, really interesting streams as well. But in the last week, since we last talked, things have happened. I think the Windows update had been released like close to the stream or right at the end of the stream, and the Android release came out shortly thereafter. But do go get 13.19 for Windows. It's our fast edition. We spent a lot of effort and time and thought into trying to speed up LaunchBox on how quickly it starts, on how quickly it is to navigate, and the early reports that we've gotten over the past week and a bit are overwhelmingly positive, in that people are really feeling the efforts that we put in with a better experience on their side. A couple of little minor issues that we're working through that we have discovered, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see some fixes for those coming down the pipe. But I think the vast majority of them, if not all of them, have a known workaround. So if your upgrade experience wasn't perfect and you're having a little bit of issue check the forums, send us an email, do something, get a hold of us, use the feedback forum, file a bug report. We'll have some suggestions for how to get past anything that you're seeing. But again, overwhelmingly positive. It's I've gotten used to it already. I had to load up 13.18 to test something recently. It's like, God, this thing's so slow. So appreciate those who helped us get to 13.19. And the Android release, I actually don't know what the number is. But whatever it is, the Android version release was a cleanup fix, and definitely should get that if you haven't already. It fixes a lot of issues. But all the releases have happened since we last talked, and the emails have gone out. I think the emails got kicked off right during Farron's stream, and I think they finished up over the weekend. And if we get some time later, I'll share an issue that I'm fighting on the server that we use to manage all of those things. That is a fun technical challenge. Issues with log files. If we get to that point. Other updates, I can't think of anything else that's been like huge for us, but that's quite a bit already in just a week. Intros, right? Now that we're well into this, I know that you did give a quick hello, but we are joined today with another member of the LaunchBox team, our newest member of the LaunchBox team. He's been around here for just a few weeks now. So, Skarmy, how's the first few weeks been here for you with us at Unbroken Software?
Yeah, it's been great. I've enjoyed the move from consulting to working on a product and being able to deep dive on a product and keep iterating on it. It's been a lot of fun to work on something that's like tangentially related to games. And the team's great. And it's awesome to have a community that you can see, whereas before just kind of faceless users.
So both.
I don't know if there's anything else you wanted me to go into, but
so both me and Skarmy come from B2B, business to business consulting contract work, basically, where we would be hired, work for hire for companies that need something. And because we were an agency, you worked with a different company every week, right? You'd build a thing, you'd move on to the next company, build a thing, move on to the next thing. And yeah, that comment about having something that's a little bit more persistent is real, because most of the time we do a thing, the client says thank you, they pay their bill, but that's kind of the last you really feel of it until they need a version 2, and then you have to remember what the heck that thing was.
a year later.
Yeah, a year later, like what the hell was
that?
Yeah. And so this community, it's great because you get to see the whole thing and have this relationship with sort of people. So we are happy to have you. As said, Skarmy's main talents lie in web development. His tech stack lines up pretty neatly with what we're doing here, and so his focus will be primarily web stuff, but the GameZB is his initial focus and what he's been working on. He'll take over this auth site at some point, and the www site, and new undiscussed things, but web, all the web. And as we've talked about before, the Linux build is going to be in part using some web-based technologies for chunks of the UI, the management screens, and various other things. And so you'll get to have a huge play in building that out. So welcome, happy to have you. Glad that after 10, 11, 15, 100 years, whatever we've been doing together, I get to have another one at least.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And I'm also like from school and before this, I was also a full stack developer, so um, I am used to touching .NET and SQL and whatever. So I'll probably get my fingers in everything a little bit.
Yeah. So we're a pretty small team, all things considered. Uh, we have a very, very large user base. And I know you don't need huge groups to support large user bases, but we have large user bases that are doing, I'd say, some relatively unusual in the world of software things. Like there's users that legitimately have a need to run very old pieces of hardware or very underpowered pieces of hardware or um, a, a device that may not be connected to the internet. There's lots of things that most, I think, modern software developers just don't even think about anymore that we have to. We have an offline piece of software that has to get updated safely every couple of months, and it has to work well with a bunch of third-party software that we have absolutely no control over, with all the emulators and integrations and things. Some unique challenges. So if you are a software developer out there, hopefully you can appreciate that what we do, well, it's the same as what everybody else does. We type things onto a screen and ultimately it works or it doesn't. Um, we do have some unique challenges, and so having the community support us is probably it makes it possible and worthwhile for sure. All right. Well, without further ado, let's get into today. But as always, if you have anything to contribute, by all means, the chat is open. We will focus on your questions as they come up. And today, oops, I'm typing in the wrong window. All right, so again, weird that I'm typing on Stefan's computer, but today, Scarmy here is going to focus on the literal step one of building out a new front end. On the previous streams, myself, Josh, Mr. Nibble, has created endpoints for typical login scenarios. Log in, log out, forgot password, that sort of stuff. But there's no UI. It's all just endpoints. And while we could probably have a number of you successfully get into our world by just calling endpoints, we want to create a UI. And so we're going to, from a design, we have a designer who created some things in Figma, take some designs and go through the whole process of turning some of those visuals into a working, pretty website. The tech stack in front of us is obviously Figma, just mentioned that. Behind the scenes, the endpoints that I've been working at is using .NET 9, and the front end is going to be using a combination of Vue and Nuxt. It's all kind of the same thing, but Vue.js and Nuxt.js that will be then interacting with these endpoints appropriately. And we don't have anything for this part right now. That's what we're going to be focused on today. And it is Stefan clicking the buttons, so I get to hurry him along and do what I can. But I do have access to his working environment via this live share thing, so I can sneak some Easter eggs in at least, or maybe help out a little bit as appropriate. Yeah. We'll see how it works when we get to actually like building stuff. Like I'm curious how that piece works. I've never used live share, so this is new. Other interesting bits, if you are a web developer, our UI framework, if you can call it that, of choice is Tailwind CSS. And I think that's it. I can't think of any other interesting tidbits for now. There's probably some packages that we'll use that you would know more about, but that's what we're going to do today. But before we get into code, I thought we could share our visuals and go through those real quick. Stefan, since it's your screen, I don't know if it's easy for you to switch over to the Figma. Yeah, and we'll just look at these different screens. So this is So for those joining today, you're getting a sneak peek at a couple of things. One is the sneak peek, of course, at the authentication site. But if you want to go ahead and just zoom in on any one of those screens, really, um, this aesthetic is inspired pretty heavily by the design work that we've been doing for some projects that we haven't really talked about a ton. Um, Farron may go into more detail at some point, but there is going to be some pieces of LaunchBox, the one that you're used to and the one that you're using, that will get this visual treatment, and this general aesthetic is what we're going to be using for very most likely the Linux version of LaunchBox. Again, we mentioned that it's going to be webified. It's going to be using some web technologies for much of the UI. And we're trying to, when all is said and done, if we have this stream again in a year or so, when we look back at all the things that we've been able to deliver, they're all going to feel connected. Right now, LaunchBox for Windows is not really feeling that connected to Android, and it's not really feeling that connected to the Games DB and so on and so on. And so we're trying to pick a design style and go with that. And this is what we have right now. So it's pulling the pretty aggressive green color out of the logo and going with very simple, to the point sort of aesthetic, not a lot of fluff, because we want to get to the point. And so it feels, I think, appropriate for what we're building. But this aesthetic is what we're going to be pushing into as we build out all of those future things. So feedback would be really welcome if anybody's like, it's terrible, which hopefully it's not. Or you have any thoughts on like, hey, it'd be really cool if you. I think those ideas would be great to provide to us, because again, we're going to be leaning into this with pretty much everything that we build going forward, when we have a design aesthetic to choose from. This is the LaunchBox brand, in short, and what we're going to be using. If you want to scroll to the right, we can look at some of those screens. So this is the login screen that we're going to be building. Forgot password, which has a little flow to it. Account creation, and there's a teaser on here that we're going to be introducing the idea of having an avatar, a visual, a little icon associated with your Games DB account of old, and your LaunchBox account of new, because we're tying this into the forums, and we're tying this into a more gamified experience. And we want to have an opportunity for you to have a little personalization to yourself in here as well. And so this will be a new feature that hasn't existed before. That's it. So that's my intro into what we're building. We're going to take these design files, do what we can, turn them into some HTML, maybe hook them up to some endpoints, and get to a point where some things maybe work. We'll see. We'll see.
Hopefully. It's always an undertaking to start from scratch. There's a lot of fixing and tweaking as you go. So.
All right. Well, I've delegated this. It's your problem now. Have fun. I'm just gonna sit over here. Well, I forgot how to get my lighting to work. There we go.
So yeah, gonna start a Nux project from start. I have so many windows open, so I'm gonna be floundering a lot and having to, because I'm like duplicating screens because of streaming specific resolutions and stuff like that. I'm gonna probably click a lot of the wrong things.
Day one streaming woes where it's like nothing is in the right place.
Yeah. So to start off, I'm going to set up a Nux project. I just like to use a terminal in the folder location. We're using it's actually LaunchBox. This is the first time that I've seen someone use pnpm for a project, it seems to be much quicker. And I've liked it a lot, so I have continued to use it. So I'm just running the command to install the latest version of Nuxt and set up a project. I'm just calling it SSO app. I'll let that run its thing. I'm going to select PNPM. It's probably going to ask me a couple more things if I remember correctly.
I don't think I'm taking advantage of my live share enough. I could be totally messing with you here.
You actually have access to everything, to other things outside of
Your whole computer.
oh,
Though weirdly, I'm not seeing this thing create any files yet, but maybe it takes a second. Oh, there it goes. For those watching my face, I'm in awe. This is cool. I know it's a relatively trivial sounding technology in today's world, but peer programming, where you actually are looking at the actual same set of files but from wherever in the world, is it's what NetPlay always wanted to be for gaming, right?
So I'm just not gonna install or initialize a Git repo because I'd rather do that separately. So that's it for that. So that skeletoned out a project. I'm gonna switch back over here. Let's refresh this, and we have an app. And just to make sure everything works, I'm gonna open. Do I have feature enabled instead? Yeah, I do. I need to probably just get rid of that. That's holdover from working with Vue 2. All the Vue 3 nice stuff to work with it in Visual Studio Code. You use the Vue official app, and then I have some other extensions that just help make things easier and nicer. So that should hopefully stop most of the pop-ups. I'm going to use a terminal inside Visual Studio.
And I think, Stefan, that every time you do that, that's when I lose my connection.
The terminal?
No, whatever you just did you do anything?
I
Did you
turned
install?
off an extension.
Yeah, that turned off the
Live share,
live share
interesting.
thing too.
Well, let's start this again and
That's going to be the whole stream. It's just us turning on live share every few minutes as it gets turned off automatically.
Yeah, probably. And yeah, I'm just going to run this to give it a shot. So just running dev. Well, that's interesting. What did I get? Oh, I'm in the wrong directory.
It's got a nested. There you go.
Oh yeah, because I created a folder SSO app and then created SSO app project in that, of course. All right, that's running. Let's open up one of many. So that's the Nux startup screen. So at least Nux is working.
So while you're poking at that, I'm gonna tell some stories about you.
Okay.
So I met Stefan a bazillion years ago, and ever since I met him, we all have this person in your life, and maybe you are that person for other people, but I don't really consider myself capital letter a gamer, right? I like to play games, and I like to enjoy them, and I do play a lot of games, but I've never really associated myself with that whatever that is, whatever that means to other people. But Stefan has always been a gamer in my head, and so he's like one of two people that I use when I ask for like ideas, like, hey, I'm looking for a game. I'd like to play XYZ, and he always has a suggestion for that, and he got me onto a loss of a week of my life, probably a couple months ago. He suggested I play Satisfactory because I was looking for some kind of game, and I played way too much of it. It was around the holidays, and I played a lot of it, and got a little burnt out, to be honest. But it got me on the thinking of like other related sort of automation-y games. Because I'm trying to decide. For anyone who doesn't know anything about Satisfactory, it's a first-person factory building automation game. So it's kind of like Factorio, if you're familiar with that, but it's more immersive. Like you're more in the world because it's first person, and the aesthetics are way more realistic looking, and so on and so forth. But it got me on the thinking of like, I want to play a game like that, but maybe not. And so I don't know if you've played it. And it's not usual that I bring a game to you that you haven't played. But I started playing last night as I was trying to get ready for bed. Dyson Sphere program.
I haven't played that, no.
It's I can't tell if it feels more like Factorio. It is very similar to Factorio with the playstyle, but effectively you're sent to space to encapsulate the energy of a sun to power some large structure that humanity has built around its own sun or something, whatever. It's very similar in Satisfactory, where your goal is to completely demolish the ecology of, in this case, an entire solar system. Um, but it's very similar in spirit. And so if you liked Factorio or maybe Satisfactory, I don't think it's like Satisfactory at all, but it was interesting enough that I did go to bed a little later than I wanted to last night because I had to get past like the opening sequence of like accomplishing the first set of like, yeah, you figured out the game tasks. Um,
Oh
but
yeah, I'll definitely check it out because I'm a sucker for automation. Uh, like whenever I play Minecraft, I almost always want to play like modded Minecraft and just like work with
yep.
like its automation stuff.
Which got me to thinking like, so we largely have a community of retro gamers, and this inspiration of playing automation games for me didn't really start until Minecraft entered my life a number of years ago. And I was trying to think of like older games that brought that same kind of connection of making this to make that to make that to ultimately make more of that to make more of this, that sort of feeling that the modern factory game gives. And I couldn't think of any good examples, so I was hoping somebody in the chat would give me a an older game that was like a factory game that's not Minecraft, or because I know that's technically a retro game nowadays because it's been around for forever. But I couldn't think of anything. Not a single example in my head of a game that I played as a kid or the game that I've seen that brought that same level. And maybe it's just it's too technically hard because that is a very hard concept, I think, to solve on lower powered machines because that's a lot of work for a computer to do. But that was my pull for the audience or for you, since you know everything about games, or even Farron. He knows even more about games, I think, of an older factory game. And don't
Yeah,
say Dwarf Fortress or things that feel old. Uh, those don't count.
well, Dwarf Fortress has kind of come back. There was like someone that I can't remember if they recreated it for modern stuff or like a reimagining of it, but there was like something new that I was following on Steam for a bit. I can't remember if it's actually come out yet. I kind of lost track of it. But I wonder if like one of the older God games might have had some sort of thing like that. But yeah, I can't think of anything.
That's what I grew up on, was older God games. I played so much Populous and Populous 2, which was just Populous. um, I loved all those games. And Black and White, oh my gosh, I lost my freshman year of college to Black and White. It feels like I got so sucked into that.
um, yeah, I don't know.
Sorry,
I guess well,
I'm
we both.
distracting you.
It's okay. It's hard to do multiple things at the same time. So yeah, we have it. The little Nux site running. Um, for anyone who um wants to do view development. Um, um, the View Dev Tools is a really nice tool to, you can just see everything in here. You can modify data. It makes developing really nice. And I think one of the reasons why I fell in love with using Vue, um, especially coming from Knockout, which debugging was, well, console logs. um, so yeah, that's working. So I'm gonna just get a test page working real quick. Nuxt has a built-in router, so we can create a pages folder. Just gonna create a test page. Oops, no, I wanted that in pages. Did I create a folder or a file? I think I created a file by accident. Let's create pages. Guess I'll delete this one first. Okay. Get that in there.
So Duncan Derpa. Trying to figure the name out first. I like to try to figure out the math behind someone's names, and I don't know why I'm thinking of it, but like a Dunkin' Donuts, but it's not like done well. It's like a derpy Dunkin' Donuts or something. But Dunkin' Derpa has an EHA, which I think probably means extreme. What is it? Extreme home arcades, whatever. The arcade cab manufacturer that you can get is having some issues. I assume with 13.19, which was the newest version. Are you referring to 13.9 or 13.19, the newest one, the one that just came out? All right. Are you having any specific issues? Can you share more about what you're seeing? I know we've gotten a lot of successful reports from people that have arcade cabs in general. I can't say that I would know that they were from EHA, but I think Farron on our team has a home built cabinet, maybe, and it's working just fine in there. So what are you seeing? And hello, Flynn, or Finn? Yeah, Flynn. It's Flynn. It's got to be Flynn. It says it's Flynn.
You want me to keep developing while we're
Yeah,
talking?
go for it. Go for it. We can multitask. I got to do something over here besides leave Easter eggs in your code.
What was, I need to remember how to do the next page again. I had it at one point. I'm just gonna check something real quick.
Okay, so plugins, we have had some issues. So a little so Duncan Derp was saying that they have some kind of customized plugin that was doing something. Who knows? That was having some challenges. So 13.19 was a pretty substantive change for us behind the scenes between 13.18, which seems to be working just fine, and 13.19. We changed, and it was necessary for us to do so, but we changed which version of .NET, which we're using to empower the whole application from .NET 6, which is what it was running, which officially ended support or is going to end support from Microsoft very, very soon. So we updated that .NET 6 to .NET 9, which is the most recent version of it, which won't end support for a long, long, long time. And we did what we could to test plugins. Now, plugins necessarily aren't things that we have direct control over. .NET 9 is largely backwards compatible with .NET 6, but there are some things, and I know that Joe, I saw you in the chat earlier, you have umpteen million different plugins yourself. I think they largely just work, but you have to potentially whomever is the developer, if it's EHA that made the plugin or if it's somebody else that has the plugin, they may just have to rebuild it for the 13.19 release. There's not a whole lot that we can do to support that, because the way that plugins and LaunchBox work is they're extremely open and extensible. But with that open and extensibility comes these kinds of challenges. If we had a very locked down, sandboxy, proprietary model for plugins, we would have had a lot more control. But we don't have that. We just have we're just loading .NET. And so if they're more than willing, I'm sure, to fix the issue. And we're here to help. Like if they don't have the time or don't have the ability or for whatever reason can't do it, if we could get a copy of the source code, like we would be happy to fix some of these for them. But I think that's going to be the issue. So yeah, until if you need that plugin. So your other option, of course, is to figure out if you can get by without that plugin. I'm not super familiar with the Omega Drive plugin. So I might do a little, while Scarmy here is working, I may just take a look to see what that plugin does. But there may be a way to get around it. Who knows?
Gonna
Okay.
interject
Yeah.
going, yeah.
Dave. Dave. Go for it.
Sorry. I was having an issue where it wasn't working. I just had the pages folder outside of my app by accident.
That nested folder is going to kick you in the butt.
Yeah, it would probably.
But if you fix it, I'll get disconnected again.
We'll fix it down the road. Tech debt, right?
Tech debt.
All right, so have a little example. And now I'm just going to install Tailwind.
So curious, in the chat, even if you just post like a little hands up or something, who either professionally or privately is into some kind of software development? Either you're a web dev or a backend dev or a SQL dev, or you write HTML for a marketing team, whatever it is. If you're writing code for a computer to interpret, I consider you a programmer. So Duncan Derpa is a UX designer. So do you just focus on the pretty bits, or do you do a bit of JavaScript as well? And Flynn programs dinosaur robots. I don't know what that... It looks like a T-Rex. You do pretty bits.
Nice. Yeah, I rely on Tailwind to do the pretty stuff for me. CSS is kind of the bane of my existence. I fight with it constantly, but Tailwind kind of allows me to appreciate CSS and within a way that I never really have to touch it.
I remember the days of when Bootstrap became popular. I am also a backend developer who is forced to create UI sometimes. So I know what a good user experience ought to be, and I have these ideas in my head of how to make them, but I just struggle with turning that into reality because of CSS and whatnot being what it is. Okay, yeah. Well, you're seeing us struggle live with. Well, yeah, I guess we're not struggling yet with that point yet, but this is honestly the first time that I've personally been through this particular translation between, like from start to finish, from Figma to coded with Tailwind. So hopefully our designer did a good job, and I know that he's willing to change his approach. So if you see anything that we could do better, by all means, happy to hear it. It looks like Tiffany and Joe, got a multiple personality person here, does a lot of programming with JavaScript, PHP, Python, all the things. You're a jack of all the languages, a polyglot. I think that's the word. You're a polyglot. I like to think of myself as a polyglot as well, though for a long time I've really been focusing on .NET. That's cute. If it was me, I would have tried to like combine the names somehow, but Jiffany or Toe it just doesn't sound as good. Well, Joe, happy to have you, and uh, I exist with you in spirit because I also am that sort of all-purpose coding world. Um, I got my start. My very first programming experience was as a kid on a Commodore a C64, writing basic code, and I learned how to code out of a magazine. Um, and Stefan, I know you're young, but a magazine is a thing they used to print where they'd put like articles and stuff inside of it. It's kind of like a blog, but in paper form.
You mean a zine?
I learned out of a magazine, Compute magazine. It had a bunch of code in there, and I would just type the things on the pages into the thing, and at the end of typing all of that, it would do something, and it was so cool. I really enjoyed that. And then I learned C++, and then I learned Visual Basic, and then I learned QBasic. I went backwards there for a little bit. I learned a little RPG, which is a programming language in this context. And then I found ASP, which kind of got me into the Microsoft realm. And so Joe got 664, then QBasic. Yeah, similar experience. No, Flynn, no punch cards. I'm either not that old, or I worked at a very fancy place. I've seen them. I've held them. I even punched them, but I never put them into a machine that could read them. When I was in high school, my mentor, the person who probably put me on this path, like I probably wouldn't be in this seat talking about coding if it weren't for this teacher of mine. He had a bunch of his old programming stuff in a closet, and so he would regularly share. And I remember the first time I saw an actual, like, my screen's huge here, but an actual big floppy disk, because I grew up on regular floppy disks, the 5.25-inch ones, not the big 1.5 wide ones. But he had a punch card machine, he just didn't have it hooked up. But anyways, so while I was in college, I felt like I was primarily an ASP coder, and I was working on a project where I had to convert a PHP BB, an old bulletin board system similar to the InVision community that we use here at LaunchBox. I was converting an old Perl based bulletin board system to PHP BB. I can't remember what the Perl one was called. But I remember like deciding on a weekend that I was going to do the data migration that weekend. And I didn't know anything about Perl or PHP at the beginning of the weekend. And I can't say that I still know anything about Perl or PHP by the end of the weekend, but I knew enough to write a conversion script from that terrible old Perl. I'm going to see if I can find it. Perl based bulletin board system.
I do remember playing around with PHPBB at one point.
Yeah, it was like modern. It was like super modern technology when I was working on this. Because the old Perl one, like it didn't have a database. And so it just stored everything as files. And so every article and every post and every user and everything was just a file. Which makes sense. It's super fast, I guess. And we're going back to that these days with precompiled code or precompiled server-side rendering sites and things like that. But Perl was way harder to learn than PHP. I remember thinking that when I was doing that project. So Joe hit university in '94. The assembly. I did a little bit of assembly too. Not like much. I did it for a class in college. And it was risk-based assembly. So I think it was the easier kind. And then it was straight to C++ for me. No C and Java. never touched it because I got into the .NET ecosystem. So I did J++. I don't know if that counts as Java either. I, I think we'd get along, Joe. Um, so what do I think about OpenEmu for Mac? I think the better question is, what do I think about Mac? Um, I don't use one. I have one. It's sitting over here. It was an expensive waste of money. Um, I have a MacBook Pro something something something, and I load it up once in a while. So I don't have an opinion about OpenEmu because I don't have an opinion about Mac other than I don't use one. Um, I wanted to because I got this thing during a phase in my life when I was like trying to I wanted to just do something new. I had been doing .NET development for forever, and I was like, oh, I haven't tried to learn a new like programming like system in a while. Like it's been a number of years. I used to do it all the time, and I'd like to get back to that. And I wasn't quite ready to go all in on like a Linux world, and Mac kind of gets you to a Linux world without going all in. And so I got the MacBook, and I tried to do like a Ruby based project and whatever. So I don't use the Mac anymore. Um, it's pretty, it's nice, and it's a really lovely machine. I really like the computer. Windows is so much easier. And I know people who use Mac are going to say Mac is so much easier. But Windows is 100% easier you for most things that users care about.
I in school, yeah, I used Java as the main language I started with. Um, and once I switched to C Sharp, I liked it more. I don't know why I didn't like Java. It's kind of the same thing, but I don't know, for some reason just didn't. Um, I played around with Ruby, and I will remember that Ruby was annoying to develop on with Windows because it does not handle
Yeah.
Windows file system well. It's so slow.
Yeah, and that's ultimately why I have the Mac because I wanted to do a Ruby project, and uh, this was before I think WSL was okay. Nowadays, I think WSL is pretty good, but you love Windows 11. I used to joke that I have a Microsoft logo tattooed in places you shouldn't look, because I've been a Microsoft sort of junkie my whole life. I had a Microsoft Windows phone, both versions. I had that old Microsoft CE based phone system and the new Metro style one. It was my favorite phone. It was like a Nokia giant heavy. I guess nowadays it would be small, but I had a big Nokia Lumia something phone. I loved that interface. I loved Windows 8.1 the interface. Windows 10 was nice. Windows 11 is nice. If I have to complain about something, is I think Microsoft is letting their desire to not support software bleed into their software. um, Everything is becoming. I guess we're doing the same thing where we're like, how can we webify some of these bits of technology? But I don't think the OS is one of those things. I think it was on Farron's stream talk about Chromebooks. Like that's just not a good idea for an OS. A browser is not a good idea for an OS.
Thinking Derpa, yeah. This is like the first time, well, basically the first time I've actually been using Figma. So, and we kind of just figured out that we can uh, make it create Tailwind code. I'll definitely look into the to Zero Height. Unsure exactly what it is, but that would probably be good. Cause yeah, we'll definitely componentize this, and anything to help would be great. Yeah, we're using the plugin for Tailwind. Um, it did have an option to Josh was playing around with it a little bit. I don't remember how to get to it anymore. Uh,
That
uh,
plugins tab at the top.
that we could like, because yeah, we noticed that it was creating all like specific pixel heights and stuff like that, which is not ideal. Um, and we tried rounded values and rounded corner colors, but it didn't seem to work. Design mode, not dev mode. Josh, you want to say your
Pardon?
thoughts on Copilot? I also have.
Oh, you can go. Doesn't have to be all about my thoughts.
I like it as an assist, like especially like its comment-based syntax, at least for developing, like, being able to type out like all the months or um asking it to be like, hey, why is there a horizontal scroll bar or something? Um, Stuff like that helps a lot. Um, Getting it to go through your code or help fix like a bunch of boilerplate code. Um, like I'll probably get it to like, replace all these pixels with a different thing. Um, I don't think it'll ever phase out developers. Uh, I mean, I'm biased. I'm a developer, so I hope not. Um, but I think we've seen too many people who like rely on it directly will create code that is either bad or has, backdoors and stuff like that. So it's just like um, front end development. You use a lot of node packages, and that can help speed up. But if you use too many, then there's supply chain attacks. Could lead to just bloated, messy code. Um, so I try to like use as minimal as possible, unless I find it would be helpful.
Yeah, so two separate questions. My thoughts on Copilot, and I think developers should should go find a new job. Um, I agree that as a tool, any of the LLMs, whether it's Copilot or Claude or Anthropic or any of those, um, they're all really amazing tools. Every time I use them, I'm impressed at how well it seems like they understand code, knowing how an LLM works, and that the understanding is not actually a thing that they do, but it's weird that I can paste code and it can find issues with it or fix things or suggest changes. So I'm just amazingly impressed with the technology, and I use it all the time as a competent developer. I think it makes me better and faster at what I do. Um, it never complains. I can tell it to do something that is incredibly boring, like create a POCO class that represents a JSON schema, blah blah blah. And I think it's better than most of the purpose-built tools that can do similar things, because you can converse with it and suggest things during it. Like that example that I just gave of like, I have a schema that I'd like to represent in object form, create some classes for me. There's lots of tools that will do that, but there's none that you can say, and here's my naming convention, and we really like it to be called this, and don't nest it to whatever. You can tell it instructions, and it largely listens. So as a tool for a developer, I think it's amazing, and every developer in the world should have access to some tool like this. If you are a developer and you work for a company that has trouble saying yes to these tools, get a new job, or find a way to run it locally. Whatever it is, it's just, I think it's a necessary tool. Now, more philosophically, do I think Copilot will eliminate developers? Some, yeah. I think the Steam engine eliminated some workers too, but they found something else to do ultimately. I don't think any great revolution we've had in industry has ever actually made a bunch of people unemployed. It either made them do a just slightly different job or a better job or managing the thing. So instead of making the thing work, you manage the machine instead. And I think a large language model is only as smart as the training material. And so if I had to guess what might happen in the distant future is there's going to be people who are programmers who are effectively helping train models, or writing whatever documentation is needed to support those things, or are running the models. But at some point, I think a human can still do a better job coordinating a bunch of efforts. And so the classic role of I just type code, maybe that role goes away. Um,
Sure. Yeah.
and it's more of I negotiate between pieces of technology. You know, I'm a developer. I've been promised that I don't have to write API code, integration code my whole life, right? Oh, just use SOAP. You don't have to write integration code anymore. Oh, just use REST. You don't have to write integration code anymore. Oh, just use Open API. Oh, just use like this promise has been given to me for 30 years and I still write integration code. Um, I still need to know how it works. I still need to do all of those things. Uh, and I don't see that changing in my life, because at some point, when you have enough magic in a computer system, every piece of magic has some kind of limitation. And right now, the technology isn't capable of going past that limitation because people need to go make it do that. And so I think we'll always find it. Just like form designers. Scarmy, I know that we've played with many form designers in our day of like automated form schema tools and things, and they all suck at some point, right? They're fantastic until they're not. And I think code made by a computer is right now the same way and will be for some time.
Yeah.
So Duncan
I think I
Derp has
agree.
got.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I think I agree that yeah,
It'll change the
often
job.
automation and stuff like that will probably phase out the people who are doing just like the generic, almost like data entry stuff. Um, it is not always a good thing, but it does hopefully open up. As long as people, ideally, the thing would be you would train people to do the jobs that the robots and the AI can't do, right? So like the jobs are more fulfilling and more problem solving. But
Yeah. And I think we've seen with industry time and time again that because of human greed at the end of the day, um, we'll never reach that utopian, because the whole point in a utopian sort of look at this is like, oh, well, that would be fantastic, right? If we didn't have to do those jobs, right? Because I could just enjoy all the things that I enjoy in life. I don't have to do those things because money and tasks and farming and water and all this stuff just work. It's just there for me because computers are running it all. And the trouble is that computer, that farm, that thing is going to be run by somebody who wants to get paid for it, which means we all need to have money. But if we all just agreed that we'd just be happy uh, with infinite sustenance, but we'll never get there, unfortunately. So in a perfect human society, as represented by Hollywood or some author of a book, I think we could see a day where developers aren't needed. But we'll end up with the Matrix, I guess, and with just batteries in a machine.
let's
Yeah,
see
Star
if
Trek.
I've
I remember as a kid, Star Trek was my favorite show. I'm 100% a Trekker. I'm not a Star Wars fan. I don't really. I'll probably get hate mail after this, but I don't like Star Wars. I don't like any of the Star Wars worlds. I don't like any of the Skywalkers. They're all terrible people. I don't like them. But Star Trek, that was my jam. I really liked Star Trek, and my whole life I want a holodeck. I just want one of those holodecks. The the perfect technology for me. But we still don't have holodecks. The closest thing we have is what, VR maybe, or
Mm.
augmented reality, and they're just still kind of crap. Duncan Derp was being very philosophical on us.
Yeah.
Who owns the IP if AI makes the code? I think lawmakers are trying to answer that. Um,
Yeah. I-
it'd be easy
It's
to
a
suggest like nobody, like
I've conflicting thoughts on IP and like copyright on code, but
uh, I don't know. I've written code for other people my whole life, so I've never really had an ownership over my own code. And
mm,
so like whatever, that's whoever paid for it, I guess, gets to own it. It's been my uh, business mind, I guess, for a long time. Yeah, I think that's exactly it, Duncan. We no longer have to type the things. We can just uh, edit and maintain. I think, Scarmy, your comment about how the kind of code that it tends to write when not instructed well is kind of crap most of the time. Like AI
yeah,
is much better at helping along a piece of something where it can be inspired by, as opposed to I have nothing, please create me a whole application like that. Um, I don't know.
yeah,
It still takes a lot of human prompting to make the system do it correctly.
yeah. And it can speed up the workflow a lot instead of having to like, we're used to like searching up the knowledge base or the help articles on specific integrations or software to try to figure out how it works. The AI, you can kind of just ask it specific things and it can spit you out the little bit that's all you need instead of having to read through multiple documentation and stuff. Um,
But I don't think we're celebrating
which
enough that you have a pretty thing on your screen.
Yeah, got a pretty thing. It needs some work because it's not mobile friendly, but there's a pretty thing, and it does contact a API, though it's doing it as a get, which is interesting. I need to figure out why. Um,
So that is, again, you're too young to know what HTML is. You have to tell it your method. Um,
oh, did I? I thought I didn't actually have
See,
a
AI
method.
knows.
It's been a long time since I've used a form directly. Usually, I just have an AJAX request. Um, I just in the testing, I didn't think I had that, so I was kind of just curious as to why it was acting differently. And then I also noticed that on page refresh that it's like showing ugly and then goes pretty, so I have to change that. But probably need to look into if it's using Flexbox. Yeah.
Well, we got data. I before we started the stream, I was actually trying to get the APIs to be loaded somewhere, and then I completely got distracted because whatever, ADHD affects us all differently. And, and uh, my red flag is I didn't actually work on this. So I deployed it.
Sorry,
So
I was talking to
unfortunately,
someone.
some of the so if you've been paying attention to what's been happening over the last many months, is we're trying to like modernize a lot of things. Some of our systems, regrettably and admittedly, got a little behind. I'll say, and we've been trying to modernize them, and our infrastructure is also showing its age a little bit. It works just fine. It's perfect. It does what it needs, but it's not the most conducive to modern development practices where you can just like commit code somewhere and magic happens. And I'd like to work towards that, but in the meantime I have to manually go do some stuff. So I will see if I can get this. Oh, I had deployed it and then it didn't work. I was getting some 500 errors, but I didn't know what the errors were. And so I started looking at the error file, but then we started this stream. I don't understand this error either. So I got some AI Googling to do myself.
Nice. I could also explain something real quick. So yeah, my form action is just going to API/test, but API/test doesn't actually exist anywhere on my computer or anything. So with Nuxt and specifically, actually I think it is Nuxt doing it, which have a little route rule for a proxy to it's just a request bin or now pipe dream, because as Josh and I were talking earlier that somehow a free service got bought out, but that's how things work now. um, so yeah, it's just a little basically request bin. You can see all the requests you make and see the data. Um, and I was just trying to make sure that my data was actually being passed along because I just needed a name field. For the games database, we do use Cloudflare to build.
A piece of it, yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
So the build systems that like I'm confident we'll need something more complicated than uh, just a Git deployment like what Cloudflare does. The one, Duncan, that I'm most used to that we'll probably lean into is just using GitHub Actions. We use GitHub for all of our source control, and their GitHub Actions, while not like a full build system like Jenkins, which I've used in a previous life, it's like we don't have that complicated of a system. I think we can get it to work with GitHub Actions for all the things, and especially as we get into the more cross-platform LaunchBox work, it makes it really easy to spin up runners. They call them in different OSs, um, and I think the code that we have so far is the code that we have so far is going through some automated testing just using GitHub Actions on the Linux work that we've been doing. So the as time permits project behind the scenes is to automate more of the development DevOps stuff, which includes QA and testing and those sorts of things, which right now in some places is a little bit more manual than I would love. If I had infinite time. Oh, Farron had commented way earlier, and I started a Google search to represent it. He had said that he had annoyed the one our one Chromebook user is not happy. I know they submitted an issue, and I'm guessing you were unable to get it figured out. But I started Googling on my screen Chromebook stats just to see if, and it's estimating that there are 37 million Chromebooks out there, but I'm guessing 36.9 million of those were sold to schools.
I have been thinking about giving like my dad a Chromebook, because my dad is no longer. My dad is one of those type of people who is computer illiterate enough to figure out how to do things, but not enough to not mess everything up real bad or get a virus. And at this point, he just needs a web browser.
Does it? But needs a bigger screen than a phone.
Yes, because his phone is zoomed in the max, so he sees like a word at a time.
I experienced that for the first time just recently too. I was at my mom's place and was helping her with her phone, and yeah, the text size or like everything was just so big. Like, how do you use this? This is worse than not having a smartphone, I think. one of my favorite usages of chat GPT and the like these days is like in the old world, when you got an error, you either knew how to fix it or you started Googling stuff, right? And you had to like pick which pieces of the error message you wanted to Google on because it was important that you were searching on. So you had to parse the error message first. But nowadays, you could just copy the whole stupid thing. Don't even have to read it. Like when NPM doesn't build right. Like I'm not reading all that. That's like 4 billion lines of information I don't need. I literally copy the whole log and just paste it in there and be like, "What's up?" It's like you need to set your permissions on this file. Like, thank you. How do I do that? Well, Duncan, I also like GitHub. Um, and now that we've officially sunlit, I think we can call it official, Farron, maybe. Bitbucket is dead. We can claim that GitHub is the only place where we could possibly host source code. Uh, I was an early user, so I grew up using Visual Source Safe. Scarmy, what was your first exposure to source control?
Um, it was like Tortoise SVN with like I don't know if it was like some what the backend was like vSphere or something, whatever it's called.
All right, so you grew up on SVN. Um, I grew up on SourceSafe, which is a terrible product. I would never recommend it. Even at the time, it was a terrible product. Um, Visual SourceSafe. Oh my gosh, that's bringing up haunting memories. I worked for. I feel like I have to share this tale now why it's so haunting. So I worked for a. I've been a consultant my whole life. It feels like. So I worked for a consulting company who used Visual SourceSafe, and I was their very first exposure to a remote worker. Right, this was before that was even a concept that existed for technology, but we can do it, right? I can VPN in and I can connect up to all your file shares. I can do all the same things with a VPN. And they used Visual Source Safe. And if you know anything about how Visual Source Safe works, the only thing that's interesting is that it's just files, right? There's no actual database server. There's no server. It's just files. And their source safe had exceeded the recommended size of a source safe repository. I think the recommended limit for a source safe repo was close to like a gigabyte or something silly. And theirs was tens or hundreds of gigabytes big, which meant any interaction with source safe over the VPN took time. Like I had to wait for code to check out or commit or submit or any of those things. And it was just such a miserable experience. Then the files would get corrupted when the VPN killed. It's just, I almost quit that job because of Visual Source Safe. Long story short.
I got a visitor. I got a little nugget. This is Ruby.
That is not a little nugget. That's a big
She's
kitty.
very little. You're less than 6 pounds.
She looks. I don't know, maybe it's because you're so small, but
Because I'm
um,
tiny too, yeah.
it's okay. I've been telling Stefan he's short his whole life.
Josh is just a mutant and too tall.
I'm normal heighted, I think. I don't know what normal heighted is, but I feel normal. Um, uh, so no, I've never used Rational. My source control life was Visual Source Safe. Well, I guess before it was zip files, right, on a file system somewhere. It'd be like, make sure you zip your code up once in a while. So that was first source control. And then it was Visual Source Safe. And then Mercurial, because we really got onto the distributed system for a little bit, but also SVN, because that was amazing. I still miss SVN because it always just worked. And Mercurial, which got completely destroyed by Git, which has been my life since. And Joe worked at a company that also tried to do something very complicated. That actually sounds a pretty cool system. That's the kind of stuff that I like working on. That I guess I've always liked automation. Maybe I should have been a DevOps engineer. That's my satisfactory in real life stuff. Is I like to automate things.
Um, so we have it looking pretty, uh, actually acting pretty in terms of like response and stuff like that. But we'll continue to work on and play around with Figma, and I'm gonna look into that thing that
Okay.
Duncan Derpa mentioned. Um, I know there's certain things I can do to just change from pixels to like to Tailwind classes. Um, Josh, do you
But
have any endpoints up and running or anything?
no, I don't. So I'm getting an error when I deployed it. So it's there, but I'm getting an error I'm not like super familiar with, which is unusual because I feel like I've seen a lot of errors in my life. So as it's trying to load the site, it of course works on my machine. Let's start there. Every developer's first promise. It works on my machine, but I'm getting like a certificate error, an X509 certificate error on the server. But I'm not like going out of my way to like do anything with certificates. So I feel like there's some development mode thing that's happening on the
Mm.
server that it shouldn't be.
Is it
And
something
it's
that you want to keep fighting with?
well, I'm so this is part of the open I IDDIC thing that we're not actually using yet. So I might just comment this code out for the time being and fight the good fight when I can replicate that error locally.
Okay.
So I'm going to redeploy real quick and hope for the best.
I'm gonna just, I guess I can just work on making this a bit prettier. Um,
Yeah,
like
because I
my
assume once we get that one done, like once that one's good, because all the pages approximate the same aesthetic, it might be easier for the other ones to just use this as the inspiration and then just tweak the forms specifically. Or do you think you're going to go through the same code to the same Figma to code tool?
I'll probably do that because I feel like this is honest. Are the pages gonna look exactly the same? Like
They're real similar.
we're having the same background and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, if so, then yeah, I can just tweak it in one place. I'll make a like right now is just all the code is in one place on the page and not in a layout. So I'm gonna want to move it to a layout and do all that. You know, componentization, make a component for the text boxes. It'll be nice.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, um, I guess I'm just gonna go through and change all these things. Um,
And welcome RV Gordon. All right. You have too many consonants in a row to say your name. I'm just gonna call you Gordon. Uh, correct me if I'm wrong, but hello, welcome. Happy to have you. We are in the middle of working on some UIs for LaunchBox's eventual primary login system. Um, we have some pretty designs in Figma. We're turning them into less pretty code to make pretty designs in a browser. And I'm fighting a login, or not a login, a deployment issue with the backend. So, typical developer day. Nothing works until it all works.
mhm.
And Joe is loving Docker. I never told my infrastructure challenge earlier, which you reminded me of, which maybe I'll talk about a little bit. See if I can multitask and get this deployment done too. Um, I love Docker too. It took me a long time. Like I'm years behind the popularity curve of Docker, but I've fallen in love with the concept of containers and not microservices. I still hate the concept of microservices for most organizations, but I like the concept of Docker. And there's a very, very new, if we have .NET developers in the crowd, there's a pretty new piece of technology that I'm excited to try out, and maybe on a stream we'll try it out. But it's called Aspire .NET Aspire, and it's kind of like Docker Compose. It's kind of like Kubernetes. It's just a thing that, but it's more developer focused. It's a thing where you can programmatically declare all of your projects and their relationships and what they are. So in effect, your Aspire project would say, I have a Postgres database with Redis and this API and in your code, so that every time you hit play, it just spins all that stuff up for you using Docker, so that you never, ever, 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 ever run into that first day of any new job where it's like, how do I get all this stuff to run? You just hit play, and it always works because it's using Docker. And it's not that our stuff is super complicated, but I want to get to a point where it's that easy for testing and development and all that stuff. Duncan, you're confusing me. You're a UX designer who loves Redis and Docker. I think you're lying. I think you're more than a UX designer. I think there's more to the story here. Maybe UX engineer. Maybe that's what you said, and I misheard it. But I'm confident if I asked 10 designers what they think about Redis, they're gonna be like, "Well, I like red, maybe green, blue." They're not gonna know what Redis is. So I think there's more to you than you're sharing. And it's Romvault. Okay, I get it now. Romvault Gordon J. You are the developer of Romvault. I've heard of that. I feel like I'm googling it. Romvault by Gordon J. It's in the name. Let me guess, your name's Gordon. Did I just dox you? I think you doxed yourself. So it's a multi-dat ROM management software. I have heard of this. I think I even played with it some time ago, back when I was getting some things set up. Well, very cool. Welcome. Welcome. Always nice to have a fellow member of the provider, I guess, community for the retro thing. So welcome. You're a straight up designer. You lie. I don't believe you. You straight up designers don't know about Redis and Docker. They don't. But I'll believe your job title. Like, oh, did you come up with that job title? Come on, global head of design. That's got some ego in there. I'm the global head of something here at LaunchBox. You did make it up.
I can also see someone just saying that they're a designer, just so they don't have to worry about actually building the thing that they design.
Let me ask you this, Duncan. When you go to, let's see, you're from the States. All right, when you go to Thanksgiving dinner with your family and grandma can't get her printer to work, who's fixing the printer? Is it you? Because if so, you're not just a designer. Nobody asks designers to fix printers or help them turn their computer on. Yes, okay, so just a designer. Tell that to grandma. Uh, she's got some printing to do.
I am just gonna see if ChatGPT can help me out and just replace all these things that I wanted and see what it looks like.
Perfect.
Okay, well it changed the styling up, but
Let's at least
so I
give you
mean
some inspiration.
it changed our logo.
I don't know. Are we thinking we might go back to just coding things ourselves? Humans
I'm sure I
humans
can get
humans are
that
still better.
somehow.
I'm amused at the
Um,
influx of all the people saying SaaS products are dead. Nobody needs to buy anything anymore. You can just add AI to build it for you. And then these same people are trying to like sell you a SaaS product from an AI that they used. They spent a weekend on building it, and you're trying to charge me $10 a month for something that you prompted an AI to create, and you deployed and you figured all that stuff out. But like, it's a pile of crap. It doesn't. It does what it does, and maybe it's pretty, but it's not a product. It's not a company. It's not a thing yet. All right, so I was trying to do this. Oh, and Duncan's refactoring Grandma's code base too. What kind of code is Grandma writing? she's in need of a refactor. At best, she's got an Excel sheet up with like a family tree typed out on there.
I mean, that's a pretty good grandma. That's a pretty cool grandma.
Her dating.
Also, you give her some leeway.
Yeah, I don't want to make any grandmas out there offended. Grandmas are perfectly capable of coding, just fine. I remember having a little bit of that. Maybe I'm an ageist. I don't know. But I was on a call with a group, and this lovely lady came on and was talking, and I made some assumptions about her role in the call, but she was just a straight up coding nerd, and it just took me 2 seconds to come to the realization that grandma here can code probably better than me. Like, all right, I'm listening now. I'm listening now. So grandma's got a dating app and a pharmaceutical company. Perfect. They probably go hand in hand now, right? It's like Tinder but for geriatrics, right? You have to list the prescriptions you're on. That's a really good idea, I think. I had thought at one point, I may have even mentioned this to you, Scarmia, that I wanted to create a company that people could hire to test software. But the niche would be that we would only hire retired people that live in nursing homes to be the testers. So it was going to be called geriatric unit testing. And the idea is that if grandma can make it through your product, you've done a really good job with the user experience. And if she can't, then you got work to do. Because they click on things before they're ready, they don't read anything, or they read the wrong things. I think geriatric unit testing would but now with AI, you could just ask AI, can you pretend to be somebody that's not good with technology?
Yeah, I guess the problem would be.
Well, it's incredibly offensive. First off, I think.
Yeah, I guess. Well,
yeah, besides that,
I'm used to that with you, but like, what your product has to be the thing that actually interface with like the hardware, because that's the first hurdle.
That's true. All right, I am trying this deployment, so I'm not completely distracted. I messed it
So
up.
I'm just playing around and seeing if ChatGPT will make this easy for me or not. It's interesting. ChatGPT is able to output a lot more than Copilot can. Also, the first time I've encountered where I asked it a question, it like popped up at like a web-based editor.
Oh yeah, Copilot arguably sucks compared to I think using ChatGPT directly. As you are a front-end web dev, oftentimes you could play with a different IDE called Cursor. It uses Claude behind the scenes, but the interesting thing is it's from the ground up designed to be integrated with an AI, and so it has really good insight into the whole project. Visual Studio Copilot has come a long way with the ability to like tag certain files and say, hey, I'd like to consider these 3 files. I'd like to make another one that looks like this sort of thing. Like, I think we could honestly get to a point where once we have this coded with the components, we can point it to the login page and say, hey, can you make a registration page that asks for these 4 fields or something like that? And it would be able to be inspired by the code that's already in the code base. So Duncan, the idea was that it would be an outreach program. So the way that we would be successful is because we are helping maintain cogency in a group of people who are otherwise left to just watch TV and play board games. And so there'd be an outreach program to facilities that housed geriatrics, with some sponsorship or who knows what else. I'm not sure how often they're using a job board. But maybe. I'm not a geriatric yet, I don't think, at least. So I haven't looked into the job board. Yeah, exactly. It'd be a public service more than anything. All right, I pushed new code. Let's see if new code works better than old code.
Yeah. You also, if you want, you can also share your screen and show the stuff that you've been working on. Because I'm just kind of floundering around with just playing around with Tailwind's class, which is not interesting.
Oh, it's all interesting. Did I do that?
I'm trying to also think what I want to do. This is where.
Well, you had mentioned the idea of creating, like, starting to isolate some code a little bit, right?
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah.
So we could just take. We have what I see 4 components on there. Text box, link box, button box, launch box, all the box. Probably should have been clear when we shared that screenshot. Don't expect that login with Google button will exist when we deploy the very first version of this. We are not in any position to entertain the idea of integrating that with this first version. It is on the list to do. I'd like to integrate with a few of the providers. Google makes sense because they're such a large market and a lot of people have a Google account already. I think Discord makes sense because, again, a lot of our users would have Discord accounts. And I thought maybe it would make sense to see if we could figure out how to get, like, maybe Steam or Epic or some of those as well. Would anybody in the chat use a different login than... no, it's all OAuth. The whole point of this single sign-up project is OAuth. But we're just not going to use any public OAuth providers on day one. Now, I don't know what day one actually means because we're phasing this out into multiple releases. But the very first version will honestly be functionally identical to what we have right now, other than the fact that it's all reorganized and refactored, which your grandma would appreciate. Facebook, do we really want... We could do Facebook. Twitter, login with X, login with Reddit, Microsoft, just do all of them. I think if you go, like, I don't know if, like, if you're all at a computer, which I know you are, and you're not logged in already, if you go to, like, Epic Games and click login, they have so many buttons. I don't know if we want that many buttons. It's like 8 of them. And why is Lego one of them? Who's logging in with their Lego account?
Wait, really?
Yeah, like, you're probably logged in, but just go to an incognito epicgames.com login screen and see all these choices.
Do they have like a Lego game on the Epic Store? Maybe that's why.
So Microsoft account seems to be a thing too. I guess we have a lot of people that would lean into that. I like it. So Duncan, you're going to appreciate this. I don't know if you've seen it before, but as a designer who's more than a designer, I want you to go to Lego and try to create an account. It's one of the most interesting, beautiful designs that I've seen. Whatever. So if you go to like identity.lego.com, the birth year box is bananas. It's amazing and annoying at the same time. I think it's like, I can't tell if it's good UX or bad because it is kind of annoying, but it's so well done. So the Lego identity login has some impressive, or the birth year verification thing. To log in with AI, where the language model guesses what account you want to use, but it's often wrong. I can't tell, Duncan. I think it's super impressive from a technology standpoint that somebody made that, because it's really simple code. I decided to look into it a little bit, and it's just a bunch of SVG graphics that like get turned on and off based on, like, they scripted it, right? It's not an actual animation, it's like scripted SVG. But I don't know if you're seeing the same thing I'm seeing, but it's like typing Legos in Legos. Like the Legos fall from the sky and they fall into the box and it builds the numbers as you're typing them. I think that's kind of cool. The Chile Online Protection Act. They should have that outside every Chili's restaurant. Yeah, the sound effects are a bit much. I don't know if I can deal with the sound effects. So Flynn, I like your idea of just the I'm feeling lucky login button. Oh, and of course the Microsoft account would be tied into Xbox. I honestly didn't even think about that. But I do remember that every time I have to log in, because I did not use a completely personal email address when I signed up for my Xbox account. So now I have to log into my Xbox with a very corporate sounding email address.
Remember how to bring in components again.
So, Skarmy, this is your very first stream, right? Ever?
Yeah.
So, kudos to Skarmy for agreeing to do this. I had mentioned it half in jest some time ago. I'm like, hey, you want to stream with me sometime on one of the dev streams? He's like, I guess I could maybe give it a go, which I think is Canadian for I don't really want to, but I will if you tell me to. It's hard to tell sometimes with the English to Canadian translation systems aren't very good yet. But then it was like last week, and like, I think we're ready for UI on this single sign-on thing. Do you want to give it a go? And again, Canadian sort of, sure, which I think again means I really don't want to do it, Josh, but here he is, so appreciate it.
Yeah, floundering around. And remembering how to do everything from scratch again, which
you do
usually
lose
I'm
like
working with
50 IQ points on camera, I think. I remember my first stream here, and it was just for me, I was so embarrassed because like nothing worked and it took me forever. And but that one was fun because we made the, I don't know if you ever saw it, but it was before you were around. I had spent my first stream making a LaunchBox plugin that demanded that you blow into your microphone in order to launch Nintendo games.
Yeah, that sounds a lot of fun to have been a part of. I wonder.
Well, this will be remembered forever. It's going to get uploaded to YouTube.
Yeah.
Your grandchildren someday will be like, hey, it's Uncle Skarmy. Grandpa Skarmy. How about that hockey game? The hockey game itself was embarrassing for some people, but all the politics around it could have been ignored. But it was probably the most visibly upset I've seen a Canadian. That's at hockey games. Need a plugin for the Nintendo DS. We have to yell, Mom said it was my turn. Yeah. So we have 2 kids, and they live their own separate lives by now, but when they were sharing more things, we made a rule that we were not going to help them negotiate time. It was entirely up to them. The only rule was if we heard them arguing about whose turn it was, then it was nobody's turn. And so either they could get along and agree and quietly argue so that we didn't hear, or they would lose their turn completely. Gabe Noob likes the idea of a game just randomly being removed from his library due to the corruption of blowing into the mic. That's funny. There's a Jackbox Party Pack game called Cut the Wire or something. It's some kind of bomb defusing game. I think maybe you showed it to me at some point or whatever. We could do like little mini games like that in LaunchBox where you have like you get like a really hard problem that you have to solve, and if you don't do it, then half your library gets exploded.
You have to defuse a bomb while playing in a retro
Yeah,
game.
like it just pauses everything. You got to go solve this puzzle, otherwise the game just gets deleted and you don't get to finish.
I feel like did I watch a streamer or I heard of a streamer at least?
Did something like that.
They did something like that where they like something would happen and they would have to switch to a different game and then do that first and then go back to like the because they were like doing a speedrunning race.
That's funny. I do like gimmicks like that. Okay, so we have an API that's
Oh, nice.
not airing anymore. I'm getting my my tokens. So I did embed. We'll have to figure out how to do this, but I did. It's built off of ASP.NET's classic like identity model. We're using our own proprietary database, not proprietary, but we're using our own account table and our own usernames and passwords and stuff. But it's using all of their framework, and they have, of course, have CSRF built into everything, as it should be for most forms. And so you'll have to call from the client side an endpoint to get the token to include in the form. I know that when you're using Razor, by default, it just does all this for you, but
See if this is gonna
you're familiar with CSRF, I believe.
enough of it.
Enough to know that it's a pain in the butt, but
Yeah.
we got to do it. Go Canada. I'm surrounded by them, Joe. When I was a kid, I didn't know any Canadians. And the older I get, I know more of them. And they're lovely people. Think
Also,
of them
whose fault
fondly.
is that, Josh? You keep hiring us.
I think we have to blame the doobie for that. Met them at a conference and they introduced me to all their Canadian friends. Including you.
I'm just gonna undo this.
The LaunchBox breathalyzer. You have to you have to be a certain kind of drunk in order to play. It's the opposite. There are a number of games that would be really hard if you had bad hand-eye coordination or visibility challenges or. That's funny. So does it go direct to the database or is it abstracted? So we do use. I know that .NET developers really love abstraction on abstraction on abstraction, and we're no different. We are using a minimal amount of abstraction, but we aren't doing direct database calls. We are using Entity Framework core for these new projects. The old stuff is not using Entity Framework. It's using some proprietary thing. But we are using Entity Framework for our data abstractions, but we're not building on top of that like a lot of projects do with repositories or unit of work patterns, because guess what? That's what Entity Framework is. And we don't need to abstract the abstraction. But it is written in such a way that we could use, it would be easy in the air quotes sense to move database providers if we needed to switch from Microsoft SQL to, at some point, I'd like to switch over to Postgres just because the licensing is a lot simpler to deal with and cheaper. And the system itself is just as quick, and it supports all the same things as far as the database go. But yeah, server side, so all the web-based properties, we're using Microsoft SQL, and it's either Entity Framework or some homegrown abstraction system that Jason put together. LaunchBox itself is, yeah, designers don't know about how expensive SQL licensing is either, Duncan. Just want to let you know that. But LaunchBox itself, so LaunchBox used to exclusively use XML databases. So to call it a database is silly. It's just a file. And the 13.19 release switched over the GamesDB portion of that over to SQLite, and the eventual goal is to switch everything over to SQLite as or SQLite. What did we decide it was supposed to be called? SQLite. SQLite. Yeah, SQLite.
How did I say SQLite?
Anyway, so we'll be switching the LaunchBox applications themselves as we get to them over to that. We addressed the main performance concerned file, which is the GamesDB giant many 100 MB file. But we'd like to switch over the user databases as well at some point. But there's a little bit more that goes into that, and that definitely would break some plugins because a number of them interact with those XML files directly. So we got to coordinate that a little bit. But that's the plan, is to use some SQL server, actual running server on the servers, and SQLite for local things. But right now we still have a little bit of XML. Drunk Tapper. I already feel drunk when I play Tapper. I'm still not very good at it, no matter how much I practice.
So, Josh, what were you saying that I needed to call? Did you have them point?
Oh, yeah.
Ready?
I will send you a... Well, I guess you're going to type it live, so security. It's fine, security by obscurity. I think if you just paste... Let me just copy a URL here. I'm trying out a new browser, and I don't know where any of the buttons are at. So this is the CSRF token URL that you can just get. So if you just put that in a browser, it should just load. But there might be some authentication behind that. I think I turned it off.
So do you want me to show any of this?
It's fine. It's fine. People can generate all the tokens they want.
Also, I have very rarely ever found another person from Winnipeg out in the wild. Or at least born here. Glad you were able to.
And weirdly, most of the people I know are from Winnipeg. I don't know how the.
That was one of the weird ones that was able to leave, and then I came back.
Our cohort from, was it Red Rock or something? Red Deer. Red Deer. That happened. That was a fun call. We were talking to some Canadians, and like, oh, we're going over to Red Deer, and both me and my wife knew exactly where it was at because of Subsonic. Is that his tag name? I can't remember what we're supposed to call him.
Yeah.
Subtonics. Anywho, so it was like, oh yeah, Red Deer. Like, how do you know about this tiny little village of a town? Home of the donut mill? I didn't hear about the donut mill. The only thing that I've heard about Winnipeg, is it Winnipeg, the trash hill? Is that
Garbage hill?
Yep. Garbage hill.
It's that. We were in an episode of Simpsons
Oh, that's
And
right.
can you omegas from here?
That-
Um, just gonna.
So there, I guess, so that's the main endpoint. It's um, it'll give you the token, and then there is using different pathings. There are different routes. There are all the other ones. Which do you want? What, login first? Probably that's when you're working on.
Probably do that. Yeah. I'm just looking into. I'm probably just gonna use window.fetch. Because we're. Whoop, thank you. Brain couldn't spell function.
Login is just that.
Let's just do that. I don't. I'm just gonna. Let's do a variable right now. Uh, so I need to call the token first. Have that. In this case, I'm just gonna make this really simple.
Duncan is got an idea. It would be great as a user to have an automated way to get wheel art from what other users have uploaded versus having to hunt. Um, yes, agreed. That, and I wouldn't even just talk, not to talk just about wheel art, but really all the things that our community does. Well, Farron's got some sage advice for how to deal with it right now. Um, but in some future update, we have recently been talking about how we want to handle all the different kinds of media that users collect and collate and create and do all those things. Because from sounds to art to uh, images and videos and all the things, right? There's not really a single answer for all of those things, and we were doing some product road mapping and designing stuff around how best we could help manage that. Now, there's two pieces of this. There's the making it work, right? Making it work really well, and we at LaunchBox have a very specific understanding of what a good solution looks like to really any question, in the sense that, you know, our primary motivation isn't necessarily just to make something work, but rather to make something just work. I know, I think I just said the same thing, but we want everything to quote unquote just work. And I think this is one of those examples of an area that, as we build out what media sharing looks like amongst our users, we want it to just work. Unfortunately, we have a secondary thing that we have to think through, because a lot of user content, uh, innocently enough, can include copyrighted content, copyrighted sounds and videos and images and characters and things that we can't really officially support. And so whatever we build will be community supported, just like the forums are right now, where you can go find packs of different things that, you know, they are submitted by the community, and And so we'll probably end up with two similar feeling solutions. One that is, these are our this is our answer to the problem, and then here is a way for the community to give back to those experiences. Because again, you're right. It should be as easy as that. Of I saw this on a stream, or I saw this pack, or I just want to go browse the library of things available to me. No. And as a designer, you know this, Visual Studio Code has themes, right? It should be as easy as the theme picker outer that Visual Studio Code has. Of here's a list, click it, hit install, it's done. That's my thing now. The other thing that we like to do is to go over the top with how flexible things are. Because art, for example, is a thing that oftentimes people want it to be a little different per platform or per sort of category. And so we want to make sure that whatever we do points us in a direction of super easy to get working, but also flexible enough to make it work the way that I want it to work. Because I don't think you'll find too many builds out there that are the same as anybody else's. Again, one of those unique experiences as we have with LaunchBox of developing for this community is y'all are opinionated, right? Everyone has their idea of what the right answer to any question is, and the factor tree of all those different permutations is pretty close to infinite, but we want to make as many of those potentials work while still being easy for the people who I'm more this kind of person where I don't want to spend a lot of time managing my collection. I just want it to look nice and work. And so I'd be more willing to just click a few buttons and say, yeah, use that, pack that media art. So I know that in the next a short roadmap, the next set of releases, we do have a measurable amount of effort that's going to be applied to what we're calling content creator stuff, right? Things that our community is creating and sharing and making that as easy as we can. And then at least, and minimally setting us up for an eventual experience of it being really flexible too. That is a very, I would say, passionate piece of the project that Farron is really excited about. And so if you do have some ideas about how to make that a really compelling experience, I am 100% confident that that can be a topic on his stream on Thursday. I'm a lazy user of LaunchBox. I largely just set things up as quickly as I can to get to the point of doing the thing that I want to do, which is find a game and play it. But I know the Farron is closer to the tweaks and the pixel alignments and the themes and the media stuff than I am, and I know that that's a topic that he would love to have on Thursday, and probably here in the chat too. I see him here. Yeah, so Farron has the Thursday time slot, same one as this one, noon Central US, which I think is probably right around where you're at. And he's Eastern time, also Canadian, so very, very polite and apologetic about everything. But he's theming is how he got his start in the LaunchBox world, and ultimately how he ended up working at LaunchBox was because of his themes. So yeah, if this time works for you, then stay tuned for Thursday. Subscribe now. Hit the alert button. I'm going to step away from my desk just briefly. It's very warm in this room. I need to open it.
Do I have to fill space? I'm just flailing around.
I won't be gone that long. I'm in a small room that doesn't have a lot of airflow, and I have an NVIDIA uh, heater that I think works really well. It makes plenty of heat. I think it does other stuff. I'm not sure the other features, but it definitely makes heat. All right. Well, I did my part. What can I help
Yeah,
you?
it's on me now.
What can I help? I can type
For
stuff.
some reason, my button is not getting called.
Oh, well, I can't help you with
Unpick.
that.
It's such a simple thing. Done it so many times. But to be fair, I am still getting kind of used to the composable API. I was much more used to the options API. Um,
Is the composable in the new one when they introduced in version 3?
yeah.
Okay.
Um, there's probably something just dumb that I'm doing.
Just Duncan with all the ideas today. I do want to make mention that. So I'll respond, but we also have a new. It's new as of like a couple of weeks ago. New feedback forum. For the longest time, for years and years and years, Launchbox has used uh, Bitbucket, um, which rhymes with what it is. But we have a new one. So if you do find the time and the inspiration to have some ideas for what we should work on, or what we could work on, feedback.launchbox.gg, or just from anywhere, click submit a feature request. I think it's on all the help menus and all the things throughout the application. Um, if you get to the feature request board, you can submit these ideas and people can vote on them, and that will help influence what we put on our roadmap, based on the things. But your specific idea of how about a Launchbox Arcade Edition just for arcade machines? Now, in theory, Big Box is kind of like that. Big Box was originally inspired by a need for that kind of experience. If I want something that's incredibly visual, that's controller friendly or joystick friendly, and uh, and it kind of works there. So what do you think? Are you thinking of something that's even like more lightweight? Because I know that on our last stream, on Farron's stream, we talked a little bit about small box, which was just I think a half joking idea, but the idea of like what would be the slimmest version of Launchbox that it could be. Um, but yeah, a good many number of our users ultimately put Launchbox Big Box on their arcade machines, and with the Discovery Center, it gives you an experience that's both what you are used to on arcade cabinets, but also a similar experience to like what Steam Big Picture Mode does, where it kind of gives you a Netflix style view of your stuff with different categorizations and things. So there's a lot in there that might work for you. All right, Joe, interested in the latest update about getting games from a NAS or for the Android version. Can't wait to see how that works for yourself. It's really cool. I'm so glad that we did this feature. As I've mentioned time and time again, I'm super lazy and I don't want to spend a lot of time doing much of anything. And even the sheer idea of copying some files to to my, I use an Odin, primarily my little Odin that I use primarily for my handheld stuff. Uh, Even just the sheer idea of plugging that in on USB and copying over the ROMs is just, it's more work than I want to do. And so the NAS thing is real nice because you can keep all those things on that external drive, and it will just automatically deal with the rest. It automatically downloads the files and does the things so that I don't have to put them onto the device. So it's really slick. I hope you can give it a go soon, and we can hear back from you to see how well it does work for you, because I think it's one of the cooler things we've added to the Android release. in the last couple of releases. I kind of even want something similar for Windows, because occasionally I'll spin up a small build. And so we have notions, we have plans. But again, a lot of those ideas can be supported through our feedback system. So we are what we are today because of all of the ideas, both from our team, but also from the community.
I figured out the issue.
Awesome.
The button is just the button itself is just way smaller, so I need to click on the div because I was clicking around the text and the button was just the text.
So it's a pebcac issue.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna say the Figma thing.
Okay.
That's the code it gave me.
It's those UX designers. It's their fault.
Yeah, Duncan's fault.
The NVIDIA Shield. Joe has one of those. I wish they would make a version 2. Because they haven't made a new one in a while, and it could use some better hardware, I think, by this point. NVIDIA's, I think, invented a couple of things since the Shield came out. And they're worth, like, more money than Smaug the Dragon at this point. I think they could afford to invest into a Shield 2. Because it's a great device. I don't have one, but I've played with one and set one up for a buddy, and they're nice little mini things that look okay, that sit real nice next to your TV. My primary driver on my TV is a mini PC running Windows and things, but the Android on the Shield is a really great experience too. Oh, you have the OG Shield. I've never even touched one. And Duncan the designer has he has his own NAS, of course, with 8 drives in it, and he probably knows the RPMs of them, like every good designer should. I don't have a Synology. What do I have? I have a True NAS, I think is one hardware that they made. Exactly, I knew it. I have a True NAS set up with all my stuff on it. And a similar setup. It has a bunch of spinny drives and a couple of SSDs for magic caching and stuff. Works pretty well.
All right.
Fiber channel
you might
back
need
to your arcade.
accept or add a local host as a
Cores or
domain.
something.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I coded any Cores stuff in the code. I probably. Well, why would it need localhost as Cores? Like it is. Oh, because you're running it remotely. I get it. Because you're not actually deployed. So this is a dev time problem only. Get it. Because I'm proud it'll be the same domain.
I could. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have any Cores code in here, so give me a moment. Can you? Do you have the Cores override plugin? There's an extension for Chrome or Edge and all that lets you tell Cores isn't important.
I have used it in the past and it's really hit or miss, but I can try to get it again.
Yeah, I think in my NAS I would have to look. I can't tell you what the RPM of them or the color. I think they're Western Digitals. Because when I bought it, they were the most cost effective. Let's see if I can find out what's in mine. I don't quite have 8 drives. I have 5 18 terabyte Western Reds. So only 7,200 RPM. So you got me beat there. and since you're just dumping buzzwords in the chat, I have them running on a, let's see, how do I make Cat 6 sound interesting? Mechanically spun copper wire sheathed in plenum coating that runs the 3 feet between my computer and the NAS.
Engine's not helping. Don't know what that does.
All right, cores code. And Scarmy, I have no agenda as far as how long we want to do this. So if you have a need to step away or to take a break, just let me know.
Okay.
We've been running about as long as I have in the past. I think we run roughly 2 to 3 hours usually on these things. So we're in that window.
Okay. I mean, whenever seems like a good stopping point. Have not had lunch yet, but it's not a big deal. Though Farron maybe would say differently to if he wants me to work on the game's DB more.
Yeah, we are distracting Scarmy from what's really important with this login stuff. This isn't exciting at all. He is literal inches away. Oh, you're Canadian, sorry. Centimeters away from
Even closer.
from 2.54 centimeters away from finishing up a big release for the games DB. I think Farron has showed it on his stream before, some of the aesthetics there. And so visually, it's better and different than what it was before, but behind the scenes, the technology is a lot of where the effort went into of modernizing the whole stack. The old GamesDB site is running ASP.NET MVC version 6, I think. And it's all Razor pages and a little bit of, there's probably some jQuery and, and some knockout. I don't know what the actual JavaScript code is. It might be knockout. So technologies we'd like to move towards, and so we're updating it to .NET 9, I guess. At the point of release, it'll be .NET 9 and Vue.js, very similar to what we've been doing today. But the part that we are excited about isn't necessarily this release, even though it's a long time coming. It sets us up for all the ideas that we have. We're unfortunately in that stage right now where it's like, oh, we have so many ideas of things we want to do and improve on there, but the way that it's set up is it's a lot of work to do that. And so this release is kind of like a technical debt release, along with some fanciness, because it does look a lot better. But I think slowly we'll take that aesthetic and apply it to the rest of the site. And now that this part is done, that should be relatively quick. And then we have lots of ideas for more data that we want to capture, and some community features that we want to add into it. And it's probably going to be some inspiration for the conversation we had earlier about where the media and stuff would ultimately tie into. So lots to come there. 1 milliliter of maple syrup away. Is that a unit of time or distance? Because I've always used syrup as a unit of time, right? It's slow as Canadian maple syrup in Winnipeg. That is, it's not enough syrup.
It also depends how cold it is if you're gonna go by time.
Well, I'd say we could probably start wrapping up here. I can add the cores here real quick, just to make your life a little bit easier. We can get back to finishing up the games DB and get that deployed, and then get this SSO stuff back progressing after that. So thanks, Scrammy, for joining me on this stream. I hope to have you back in some future one. And Thanks to everyone in the chat for talking. Had a lot of fun. This was a different stream for me because I wasn't running the visuals. I was just talking a lot, so I probably talked a little bit more than I usually do. Hopefully that wasn't too annoying. And appreciate everyone coming in, and look forward to hearing your ideas on the feedback forum and your attendance in future streams and in the forums and Discord and all the places that we love to have you. Thanks so much for being there and being a part of this community, and let us know how we can do a better job for you. All right, thanks everyone. I'll give Stefan you a few moments, and then we'll call it a day.
Yeah. Did you do the chorus thing or?
No, I'm not that fast.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't remember how to type it.
Oh, good. Well, but yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks for putting up with me floundering around. Hopefully it wasn't too painful to watch.
All right, thanks everyone. Go enjoy all the syrup and fake designers out there. We'll talk soon. And I'll find the button that's awkward at the end of the stream. I should have been ready, hovering over the button so I could do this.